breath from everybody. Let it out. This is the last round. The IPDA National Championship is coming to a conclusion. I hope you guys have all had a great time. I think we need to take this opportunity to give a big round of applause for the IPDA for making this event possible. As well as Sam Houston State for running a great effective tournament and hosting us here at their campus. As well as for all of our judges that have come with us. I don't think we understand how vital they are to the activity that we do. Like literally, without them, this activity isn't possible. And they don't get enough praise in my opinion. So we need to give them a big I want to thank my team. We didn't exist whenever I created this organization in 2009, and from 2009 we went from nothing at the University of Tennessee to driving 16 hours 3 years later to be at the IPDA National Championships in Huntsville and even have someone competing in the National Championship round. I am more proud of these guys than I am of any of my personal accomplishments that I have or will ever have. I can't say enough about these guys. I feel like a dad at this point. And one quick shout out. I want to thank my girlfriend. She's been with this organization judging for us. She doesn't even go to UT. She doesn't compete, but she's been judging the whole time. And I realized that like we just kind of ended up dating one day. Like I never actually met. And we've been together for like 2 years. So, you want to be my girlfriend?
Yeah.
With that, let's get straight into debate. The topic given to us today is that hydraulic fracturing is worth the risk. Some quick definitions for you. We're going to define hydraulic fracturing as hydraulic fracturing research for the use of natural gas. One more time, hydraulic fracturing research for the use of natural gas. So we're only talking about the research aspect of it and only for natural gas is worth the risk. Is ultimately a cost-benefit analysis that's going to be your weighing mechanism of whether or not the activity of researching into this outweighs the negative impacts that this type of research has. So let's go ahead and get straight into talking about some arguments. According to New York Times author Jordan Howard in an article released November 10th of 2011, energy independence is one of the most important things that we can strive for, especially considering the tumultuous history of the Middle East right now. He tells us that when we look into the research necessary to make hydraulic fracturing a viable product for the purposes of natural gas, we can see that researching into this gives us a lot of long-term benefits. The first is that it allows us to move towards energy independence away from the Middle East. This is actually proven by a United States Department of Energy study that found in the United States of America, we have 1.8 trillion cubic meters of natural gas under our land. Let me put that in perspective to you. We have 2.6 trillion metric units of oil in Saudi Arabia. We have almost as much natural gas in America as they have oil in Saudi Arabia. That makes a great viable product for us, and it would help us be able to become viable in the long term, not only for energy independence, but also as a resource that we can then market to other places. The Howard article goes on to say that eventually we're going to run out of oil. What we can see is that researching into natural gas is going to give us at least a 75-year stoppage. How many of you want nuclear or biodiesel or ethanol? We all want that because it's clean and safe, but it's not going to be here for a while. So what do? We use this clean alternative in natural gas research so we can be viable while that stoppage is happening until we get to the point where we can use alternative fuels. Furthermore, The Economist, talking about the idea of research into natural gas, goes on to tell us that the processes by which we research into natural gas, specifically the fracking system, also side note, fracking is a great word. So the more we can use it in this debate round, the better. Okay, so the more the fracking process that we go through actually gives us viable ways to produce both biodiesel and ethanol. That's right, while we're using this non-renewable resource, it gives us an outlet by which to make renewable resources. So at this point, not only do we have energy independence, but we also have long-term viability with renewable resources through biodiesel and ethanol. Now we move on to the next point, where we look at a Department of Energy study from 2011 that tells us a lot of positive impacts of the use of natural gas gotten from fracking. It tells us that it's cleaner. It tells us that it's safer. It tells us that long term it's going to be more profitable for both our country and private companies within the United States of America. It says that the process by which we frack will actually create more jobs than the current oil process does, and it says that this can become a long-term viable alternative because of the ideas to get into biodiesel and ethanol while we do natural gas. So you have oil, and then you have all of the stuff that fracking gives us. And it heavily outweighs at this point. So we can see that the research into this becomes especially important. So what do we see from the research? According to the New York Times in 2012, the President Obama, in conjunction with the EPA, has decided that they're going to start funding more research into fracking. Now, we completely understand that there are risks, and I'm sure the negative is going to talk about it. We're going to address that here in a moment. But what we can see is that at the point in time when the President is working with the system that's set up to protect our environment, to fund research into this, and they both agree that it's a viable thing that we should look into, we can see that the risks are easily outweighed because of all of the gains we get economically as well as environmentally, because this is not only a cleaner product, but it also allows us to move towards renewable energies. In fact, just last Friday, according to the Associated Press, President Obama has created an oversight staff with 12 different organizations in the government to oversee this research. We now have 12 different organizations making sure that this is done as safely as possible, as efficiently as possible, and as profitably as possible. So when we look to the status quo, we have oil. It's dirty, it's dangerous, and it causes environmental problems. In this plan, sure, fracking's dangerous. But how do we make fracking safer? We pay for research. Research to get into this viable good that makes it sustainable for the future. So you go to Fracking. Research into natural gas, so
right.
Yeah.
Now, what is the risk of research?
Well, I mean, obviously when you're doing research, it's just like doing any other experiment, so you have to do this in isolated instances, like you're going to have to frack a little bit.
Okay, so have we seen risks coming from this research already? Have people been dying? Have they been releasing any toxins into the air from the research?
For the purposes of research, no. But the problem is that we are using fracking at like a larger scale right now, and that's dangerous.
The use of fraction, but I'm talking about the actual research, correct? Well, we're talking about the actual research, so has the research presented a risk in itself?
Well, if fracking is a risk and research requires us to frack, then yeah, there's a little bit of a risk.
All right. Could you just provide for me the taglines of any of your points today?
Yeah, sure.
Just the taglines.
Yeah, no problem. The first point, we're talking about energy independence. Second point, we're talking about how it's more viable in a lot of different ways other than jobs. And the last point is safety, oversight, and government oversight.
All right, awesome. Now you go on to talk about where this research is being done right now, according to Obama. It's being done in the safest way possible, the most profitable way, and the quickest way, correct?
No, that's not what I said. I said that the Obama administration is working to make that possible.
Like
that, yeah, they're working in conjunction with the EPA too, and it's not being done in the safest way possible. All those things. The point of the research is to find a way to make sure that it's done safely, profitably, and all those things.
Okay, now you say that the Department of Energy came out and said that we're using natural gas. It's cleaner and safer through this process, correct?
Yeah, it creates
so
more
talking about the
jobs,
natural
all
gas
those things.
itself.
It's talking about the use of natural gas through the fracking system has all of those positive benefits.
Awesome. All right, that's all I have for you. Thank you very much. All right, before I start off today, I do want to just thank everybody here. This is a really great honor to have made it this far in the competition. Congratulations to my opponent as well. Also, I do want to take this time to thank Sam Houston University. It's been a really good tournament, been really impressed, as well as the executive committee for making all of this possible for us today. Like I said, really do appreciate it all. And with that, I just want to get straight into our debate today. All right, first thing I want to start off with is my opponent's definitions about the research. If we are just going to talk about the research, I do ask you today, judges, opponent's case really relies more on the use of fracking and not the actual research. In addition, he doesn't prove that this research is actually posing a risk in the first place. He hasn't shown us today that the research itself is causing risks, that it's putting people's health safety risk, it's not putting the environment at risk. He's just saying, well, it's worth the risk, but we don't know what the risk is. In addition, all of these risks he presents are really just about the use of fracking itself, not the use of the research. So I really want to make that clear today. Cost-benefit analysis is great for our debate. I really think since we really haven't seen the cost of research, the benefits of not using fracking as well are going to be really good for the negative side of the debate. With that, let me go ahead and talk about his points, and then I'll move on into my own. His first point was this energy independence. He says we're trying to move away from being dependent on the Middle East. Problem with this, however, is that 40% of our oil actually comes from Canada. So we're not completely dependent on the Middle East. A lot of it is actually coming from the U.S. as well. So it's going to just help us move away possibly, but it's not going to be an immediate thing. There are many other alternatives out there that we're actually seeing in the United States, especially today, that don't involve fracking, that are actually much safer for the environment, for the people, that can also be doing this. So we don't know why fracking in particular is worth the risk. We're just the research. Again, we're not even talking about the use of fracking, we're just talking about the research for it. The research for fracking isn't going to move us out of independence from the Middle East. It's going to be the use of fracking, and that's what the risk is we're talking about today. Second, he moves on into the viable ways that we're able to produce this. He says, this process of research, he's talking about, there's so many things that we can get from jobs and so on and so forth. But judges, again, we're just talking about the research. Jobs is a non-unique argument. You can get jobs from doing research for anything. It doesn't have to be fracking is worth the risk. It could be any research job out there, any other sort of alternative for getting this natural gas out of the ground. So this is really a non-unique argument. Of course, there are going to be viable ways to produce pretty much anything out there. Moving into his third point of the safety and government. He said the Department of Energy came out and said there's really positive use of natural gas in this way because it's cleaner and safer. But again, the research itself isn't cleaner and safer. He's saying that the fracking is actually safer. And actually, I'm going to show you today. He says this is long-term better for the United States. I'm going to show you today in my own case that it's actually really not. The health risks as well as the environmental risks far outweigh any benefits that we can get from fracking. He goes on to say we're trying to make it safer, more profitable, and quicker, but again, we have to focus on the actual use of this, which, like I said, I will show you, really isn't worth the risk. So moving on into my off case today. First point I'm going to give you is the water risks. Second, I'll talk about the air risks. And finally, I'm going to talk about earthquake risks. And then last, I'll talk about the unregulation of fracking. So first, water risk. According to Scientific America in 2011, water in wells close to fracking projects have 17 times more methane in them than wells from farther away. So what this methane is a poison, and it's getting into drinking water. Obviously not what we want to be talking about today. My opponent has talked so much about use. Well, this is the use. It's not worth the risk. Marshall University found that there were actual carcinogens in wells and drinking water in Pennsylvania, so much so that residents lost access to their drinking water. EPA said that water samples from this Pennsylvania area had concentrations of chemicals that exceeded their maximum contamination level in drinking water by 10 times. And so he's saying, well, that's worth the risk to do this research. There's no risk in this research. The research is only benefits. He hasn't shown us any of the risks today of actually doing it and how it's worth the risk that doesn't exist. Moving into my second point today is the air risk. The air risk of fracking. We don't want to be promoting something that's going to be polluting our air. According to the National Law Review in 2012, actually April 3rd, so just several days ago, they found that air pollution in Colorado, residents who were close to the well had an increased risk of contracting illnesses because of volatile organic compounds released by drilling operations from fracking. LA Times in March said the toxic petroleum carbocosms that have carcinogens in them were also found in the air. It was leading to acute and chronic health problems for people in the area. MIT Technological Review said it could cause this is for my third point, earthquake risks. They're saying it's going to cause faults to go off. And in fact, we've already seen this happen. Those of you from Central Arkansas, Conway, know that we've had a lot of earthquakes recently. According to Bloomberg Business US, Huffington Post, as well as the United States Green Building Council chair of Arkansas, has come out and said that in the Conway and Central Arkansas fracking areas, we've had earthquakes